Hi, I'm Courtney. This is Something Positive for Positive People, the podcast where we talk with people who are living with or affected by sexually transmitted diseases. And today I'm here with Kimberly Knight. Kimberly, go on and introduce yourself. Tell us your age, race, sex, sexual preference, geographical location, number of children you have, password to your bank account, social security number, tax ID number, all of that.
Oh my! Hello, Courtney. Thank you for having me. First of all, and you're probably gonna have to repeat half of that because I can't remember, but that's okay. Again, my name is Kimberly Knight. I think you said ethnicity. I am African American and Native American, Eastern Band Cherokee. My age is 36 years old. I reside in the Raleigh Durham area in North Carolina. And my sexual preference is I'm heterosexual, and my status is I'm HIV negative, but I was affected by HIV. That makes sense for my story, and I hope I hit all your points.
No, I don't have the your bank account information or your social security number. No, I'm just kidding.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
you did good. You did good remembering all of that.
Oh
I
yeah.
often have to just remind people like, hey, all right, now how old are you? What's your Oh, actually, we did miss one. Your career field.
Yes, career field. I am a graduate research assistant for UNC Chapel Hill, and it's wonderful. I work for the School of Medicine, and we work on HIV cure research.
Nice.
Yes.
And how close are we to an HIV cure?
We are very close. It's to the point now where people can take one pill a day and still be living a healthy, vital life. We're living with HIV. So we are just at the cusp of it. I think we're definitely going to see it within the next 5 years for
Oh,
sure.
okay.
5 to 10 years for sure.
Okay. And over time, like, how's the medication evolved? Because I remember early in my education about sexually transmitted diseases, HIV turns into AIDS and then you die. And
Mm-hmm.
now, where we are now is HIV is treatable. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right? And it can
That's
get
right.
to a point where it's untransmittable.
Mm-hmm.
And the next step is just going to be for us to be able to cure it altogether rather than treating the symptoms. We're going to be able to eliminate it.
Right. So that's kind of where we are with the research. We actually, myself and my postdoctoral fellow, Dr. Allison Matthews, we have the opportunity to be there at the HIV Cure Lab and see the doctors working on the cell research for it. So that's a beautiful process to see. Not only that, you also get to see how, as a community engagement piece of it that we do, how people living in the community want to know more about this research and kind of where they are, clinical trials, and everything else. But you're right, it was a time where you were diagnosed and you were given a short window of time to live and then you were passing away. Where now there's options, and there's options for the partner of a positive person as well, because we have what we call PrEP now. So PrEP medication is where the negative partner can take a medication and will not contract the virus from the positive partner. And that also works in result with the positive partner taking their antiretroviral meds and being able to be on a good regimen to take care of themselves holistically as well. And
Okay.
that includes exercise, diet. A lot of times we notice in the community, a lot of people are dealing with strong
When you
issues
say
with
the
their HIV.
community, when you say the community, you
Uh
mean
huh.
the HIV community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, the
Okay.
HIV community that we work with, we notice the issue comes in with other pre existing conditions, as in having diabetes, hypertension, other pre-existing conditions that go along with their HIV, might be cancers, and those things may cause an issue with them with their HIV. So that's one of the things where medication-wise, everyone's trying to get it where people are on a strong regimen that can control the virus until there's a cure.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
so what how exactly does the PrEP medication work? So a negative partner in order for them to continue to or to keep themselves from contracting the virus. So this basically it applies to couples. So one partner's diagnosed and then the other partner can go on PrEP treatment to
Mm-hmm.
keep it from spreading. So is there not a vaccine or something? Or what?
Well, with PrEP, it's a one pill a day supplement,
Uh-huh.
simple to just like you would take your vitamin, and you take it once a day, and that pill is able to control if you are in um, proximity of the virus. If you and your partner have sex, and let's say the condom broke or something happened or anything like that, you are protected with taking that pill. one pill a day medication. And it's just as effective based on how you take your supplement. It needs to be taken every day, just around the same time of day. It's something where the negative partner has to be very responsible with that intake as well. And so does there's some responsibilities on the positive partner for making sure they're taking their medication as well to adjust their CD4 count and antiviral levels.
Okay, that
So
was
your
going to be my next question. Like, what
yes.
does the medication actually do?
Yes, so the CD4 count, when you're taking if you're the positive partner, you're taking your medications, your CD4 count, we're looking for it to rise and go up. We love to see it go up above 200 because 200 is where, and below is where you're hitting the AIDS stage.
Okay.
So that's where we're wanting you to be 200 and up. And then with your viral load, we want to see your viral load come down. We want to make sure that you're evening out so that way you won't have issues when it comes to the symptoms we hear about with HIV or
Okay.
AIDS. So, and then transmission is less likely when you're taking your medication.
Less
You have more
likely, right?
options. Less likely,
Okay, so
yes.
it is still possible, but
Yes, and
we're
that's why
okay.
we still encourage people, to think about safe sex positive things and such as using condom usages and then using PrEP. So there's still the possibility where you can transmit because nothing is 100%.
Right.
But we definitely think that if you take all of the right precautions, you can definitely have a positive situation. We've seen people have children and be positive and have a positive experience where their child is negative. So there's a lot of more options now than it was years ago, which is great.
Okay.
It's great.
Good. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was I going to ask you? I had two different questions that came up.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
one of which being, this may be a silly question, but I feel like it's something that someone would want to ask because it's something I'd want to know. Why doesn't everyone just take PrEP, or why isn't it like some sort of a substance that's available over the counter where
Mm-hmm.
we can all just prevent ourselves from contracting HIV? Because I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, condoms are helpful
Yeah.
and a lot of other precautions that are
Mm-hmm.
necessary, but a lot of that stuff kind of goes out of the window when you drink or when there's
Yes.
drug use involved, or
Mm-hmm.
if you just decide not to use a condom at all or just to be
Right.
completely
Mm-hmm.
reckless. So, um, is PrEP available to anyone?
Yes, PrEP is actually available. Like I live here in the Raleigh Durham area, so I'll give that as an example. We have a PrEP clinic over at Duke University. Their clinic, you can get your medication at no cost to you. A lot of times you can go to health centers and programs that this will be little to no cost to you to get PrEP medication. It's here. I think the thing with it is just like it is with getting tested and everything else, the stigma associated with I'm taking PrEP now, but I've actually met people that are taking PrEP just because they want to, if they happen to encounter a partner living with HIV and they're not sure if the partner has HIV or not, even with them being tested, if there was a false positive test, they're still covered. So it's kind of like people look at it as insurance
Yeah.
to say. And it's reassurance, I think, for the negative partner to say, I'm having a relationship with a positive partner. This is something where we're taking another measure in our relationship.
Okay.
So yeah, it gives you options.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is it is available to everyone. I didn't know if it was
Yes.
I
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I've read in detail enough about it
Mm-hmm.
because a
Yeah.
lot of what I see is like I follow a lot of different Twitter and Instagram pages, and whenever they post articles or anything, like I'll look through it to see if it's a reputable, a credible source, so that I
Okay.
can share that information. So I'm very very careful about it, given that my background in particular is more so in herpes. It's easy for me to
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
call out what's bullshit and what's not. Whereas
Right.
with HIV, I'm like, I don't know. And I see a lot
Yeah.
of things that say undetectable means
Mm-hmm.
untransmittable. And
Mm-hmm.
like you just said, it lowers the risk. When I hear untransmittable, I think, okay, I can't get it. But
Right.
then, in speaking with you, it's the risk is lowered. It's not completely gone.
Well, what I will say this: if you have a positive HIV partner that is undetectable, that is great because that means they've been on their medication. That means that their body levels of chemistry has regulated. So there is definitely a very small percentage, if any, because we can't say technically 100% anything.
Okay.
But there is a extremely low percentage of you contracting HIV with an undetectable partner. And then because most of the time people are the most transmittable when they're first diagnosed because they haven't been on any treatment. But once a person has been on a regimen for quite some time and they've been able to become undetectable status, that means that they can test and they may even test negative, but it's still living in their platelet cells. There's still something where we can look at it and identify the HIV is still living in your body, those antibodies. However, the risk is so much lower. That gives you more options of parenthood, family planning, and
Okay.
intimacy with your partner.
Okay, cool. All right, so I want to stay away from them too much of the science side. You did
Ooh.
just help me with getting a lot of additional information that hopefully will
Yes.
be useful to someone for when I have Dr. Allison on herself.
Oh,
She and
yes.
I are going to talk more of the like statistics, research stuff. But what I
Mm,
want to
yes.
talk to you about is your personal experience being someone who is HIV negative, having been with having your husband who was HIV positive.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start there. I mean, how did you find out your husband was HIV positive?
Okay, so it started in September, around September 20th, 2012. My late husband, Brandon Moore. Brandon and I were dating in high school. We were high school sweethearts, and then we reconnected when I moved up to this area because I moved here to get my second undergraduate degree. And when I moved here, we started dating again and, just started going out, got engaged, got married. And we fast forward to 2012, where we were married for about 11 months. And I noticed that there was like this small bump on his leg, on his calf. And he thought it was a spider bite or a bug bite from when he went to the park. And we went to the doctor, and that's exactly what they diagnosed him with, was a spider bite. And they gave him antibiotics, and he was on those antibiotics for about 7 days, and we kept noticing there was issues still with his leg. We noticed that we got started seeing the high fever, the vomiting, all those symptoms. So I took him to the ER and they rushed him in, said his kidneys were failing. We admitted him immediately to ICU. And I'm thinking, this is a 31-year-old, young, healthy male. How does this go from here? And so we get into the ER and everything. They admit him, get him in ICU, stabilize him, and then he starts having seizures on day two. We're trying to figure all these things out. By the time we get to about the half of the second day, he's gone into like a coma-like stage, and so all these things are happening at such a rapid rate. And the doctors asked me to sign paperwork about testing him for all STIs. And so we tested him for all STDs or STIs, as people call. I signed the paperwork to test him, and when the doctors came back with results, I was standing there with my best friend, who's a nurse, and the doctor said he needs to speak to me in private. And I told him, no, my best friend's here. She's a clinical nurse. If you say anything I don't understand, she'll explain it to me. And he said, okay. He said, well, I'll just be very honest with you. Your husband tested positive for HIV, and we believe he's in the AIDS stage and he is dying. And my heart just dropped like lead. And I said, okay, I just need a space to go in to get myself together, to kind of cry, scream, pray, just kind of take this all in and process. And so my best friend went to go see his family to let them know in the waiting area we need to call his mom back to be able to let her know from the doctors, the team, where we were in his status. And I just went into the small room, long story short, and I had this nice quiet time to myself for, it was only a few minutes. And I just heard this soft voice, and I'm a very faithful person. And the voice said to me, and I know it was the Holy Spirit, that, forgive him for past, present, and what's to come. And at that time, I didn't know if I was living with HIV. I didn't know what my status was. I didn't know what was going to be the next step for him. Is he going to come out of this coma? Is he not? And I went to his bedside and I told him those exact words. And the very next day, I had to make that decision of removing him off life support because he had clinically passed away. And to be so young and 31 years old, becoming a widow, 31 years old for him passing away, then the doctors told me that there was a 700-page medical record waiting for me at the Human Services Department. And when I went and I got to really go through that record with my best friend, the nurse, that's when I really got to see his story. Him being diagnosed at 23 years old with HIV because he went into the doctor because he had shingles. And shingles is something we typically don't see in someone under 50. Typically, usually that's one of the signs of HIV. So they tested him for HIV, and he was indeed positive. And in his notes, he chose not to take treatment all the years that he lived. And to think about how now that I work in the community, in the HIV community, doing that type of passion work, I realize how stigma has really halted people from wanting to get on medication, even taking that step to taking care of themselves in a way. And then for him too, I realized by reading his journals that spirituality can play a part in that too, because there was a minister that advised him that if he truly believed in his faith walk, that he would not look into the medication. He would just stay off of medication and stay focused on his faith. And that too is something where I'm concerned, and I do a lot of speaking events with universities and churches, and we'll get to that later. But I really think people, when it comes to being in a space of authority as a minister or spiritual leader, you need to be considerate of the things that you're doing when you make those decisions for people without really consulting physicians and licensed counselors to really handle that situation as a unit and not just yourself. So that's my story in a nutshell when it came to my husband with HIV. And I actually went through testing for 3 years straight and tested negative, and I was testing it was 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, 12 months. And I had to go through that stage for 3 years to be cleared. And now he's been past 5 years and about 3 months. So that's where I'm HIV negative, and they've cleared me now.
Wow.
Now,
Oh my goodness. I
yeah.
first off, sorry for your loss with your husband.
Thank you. Thank you.
There was a lot in everything that you just said, but the main thing that I want to, well, one question that I have is
Yeah.
the about the medication. So
Hmm.
he was able to go. You said at age 31, so 8 years, HIV positive, no
Hmm.
medication.
No, ma'am.
So were there? He just managed this with just diet and exercise, and
Hmm.
he
Yep,
just
it
kept
was
his immune
managed with
system
diet,
up.
exercise. He was very into going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Very good into like eating healthy, eating clean and healthy. He was really about that. He wasn't a smoker, not a drinker.
Mm-hmm.
So he was really all about physical health and taking vitamins and things like that. But and I think just spiritually dealing with things he was going through. I think all of that played into him being able to live up to 8 years
Yeah.
positive without any medication, and that is something we rarely see
Right.
in the community.
That's what.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Because it seemed like. I mean, I don't know how slow the process is, but given the knowledge that I was given, growing up, it just seemed like you catch HIV and then you die, and then it turned into after getting more and more knowledge, you get HIV, and then that isn't necessarily what will kill you. It'll be something like you just getting sick and then not being able to recover from it, and then you pass away. So ultimately, was it the spider bite that caused your husband's death, or if it was a spider
No,
bite?
it actually was ruled as a lesion
Uh huh.
from him. One of the symptoms that comes with contracting AIDS. It was a lesion, and it was not a spider bite or a bug bite
I'm sorry.
between
So
the
the
two.
HIV did make it to the point where it became AIDS.
He was AIDS because when he
Okay.
was diagnosed with the doctor, he was under 200.
Hmm.
So for his CD4 count. So yes, he was diagnosed with AIDS.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Wow. And unfortunately, you never really got a chance to discuss it with him at all, did you?
Right. So that's where my story is kind of eye opening for people because I forgave him in the presence of him not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, he was in a coma, so whether to know if he heard me or not is not known. And also, it's the piece of moving forward in life and letting it go right there at that hospital and not looking back, not having any input, anger, or frustration from it, but moving forward in life and then taking something that was so negative and moving into a positive space and being resilient with it. Hmm.
And it seems like your faith is really what helped you to be able to forgive him. I mean, because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do. I mean, there's got to be a
No.
lot of anger and frustration, and why didn't you tell me? Or,
Mhm.
do you not care about me enough to share this with me?
Mhm.
And fortunately, with your own faith as well, you were able to, like, you just happened to have not contracted it. And
Right.
that's a blessing, especially for you to be able to take this situation and, forgive, let go, and be able to move forward and help other people with the story that you have. So
Mhm.
thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for letting me share.
Oh, yeah. So how did there were a lot of people in the room, right? His family, did
Yeah.
they all know?
No, only his mother and myself
Mm-hmm.
knew, and then my parents. And then, of course, the nurse friend, the best friend that I spoke of.
Uh-huh.
We were the only ones knowing. His family didn't actually, the extended family didn't find out until about 6 months later. And that was a preference of the mother, to wait, which was fine. But I started doing advocacy work probably about 3 months after he passed. I started going to counseling myself, clinical counseling, about 2 weeks after he passed. And that's also when I started my process of getting tested for HIV.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how was that? Were you ever like, oh my God, I hope I don't have this? Or what was the feeling going through the testing process?
And the testing process, like I'm sure people can relate that have been tested, that window when you're waiting for your results is like a nightmare
Yeah.
sometimes. Because you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and each day you're waiting, is the doctor going to call? you know. And but it's a process, and to go through that for 3 years and having to wait that long to know if you've been cleared for having HIV, it was a long road, but it really tested my faith, and it really tested my patience and my forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and it really made me grow up. It made me get my grown woman on for
Yeah.
real, because it was like, if you're living with HIV, fine. You're just gonna have to get on meds, take care of yourself, move forward, and move on with your life. If you're negative, you do the same thing. You're gonna have to move forward, focus on the next chapter of your life.
Yeah.
So I think it was that piece of it that I kept saying to myself that helped me get through that time.
So you were more so just detached from the outcome. Everything's gonna be okay if I do have HIV.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's gonna be okay if I don't have HIV. And you was just
Right.
more so doing everything that you had going on at the time outside of worrying about being tested.
Mm-hmm.
You just kept doing what you were doing, focused on what you had going on, and then at the end of it, thankfully you tested and you've tested negative for HIV.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So when did you start your personal work? Like what
Oh,
you're doing now? We can go ahead and talk about what you're doing.
yeah. Yeah, I started advocacy work probably it was around February 2013,
Okay.
a few months right after he passed, and I spoke at my college, North Carolina Central University. They had a women's event called Females Rock, and I actually met your previous episode, Swazette, there.
Swazet's
Swazette
amazing.
was there speaking about her life. Isn't she amazing? Oh my God, you guys got to listen to that
she's
podcast if
awesome.
you haven't already.
She's
Those
awesome.
listening to me. Um, she's awesome. But I met her there and so many other great people, and people really embraced me, and that was like a big deal to do that event. And I also did a women's conference event in Greenville, North Carolina, and it was really inspirational to tell my story. And that was more of a faith-based conference. And that was really nice. So being able to do university and then doing faith-based organizations, I knew that that was really a calling for my life, to be out here and be a sounding board to really talk about HIV awareness. So it really started there, and it just kept growing.
Yeah. In your
And
advocacy, do you find that people are people more curious or are people more like afraid? What kind of feedback do you get from being in HIV from the advocacy work that you're doing?
well, feedback from people that attend the events is always very positive. People
Mm-hmm.
are like, "Oh, now I feel comfortable to go home and tell my status to my family or friends or loved one." Or, "Oh, I have a family member or friend that's positive. Now I know how to communicate better and more effectively with them
Uh-huh.
and be more compassionate." just this is something I'm researching, or I'm a student and I really want to get in this field and work in it like you are. So I always have positive feedback for attendees that have come to the events or programs. And then in the community, I get embraced so much. I get so much love from businesses, corporations, and different community organizations that support the advocacy work that I do. The hardest pushback I've ever had has really been from my in-laws and some of my extended family, because I come from a very small town that is very closed-minded
Oh
and
yeah.
is not about doing advocacy work, even though that particular county is number 3 in the state of North Carolina for HIV cases.
Wow. And then with that being said, the you said that um, there were some ministry notes or references in your late husband's journal where
Hmm.
he confided in the ministry at a church, and they were like, "Oh, your faith will guide you, and
Hmm.
you shouldn't take the medication." Now, I have a lot of different thoughts about that personally, but we'll keep my personal opinions out of it and just make it more fact based. So, do you think that with the minister, or who, I don't want to use the wrong term here, but are we talking about a collective group of people, or are we just talking about one
One minister.
individual? Okay, so
One.
this is one minister. This isn't like
Hmm.
or not a congregation, but like that tells you how long it's been since I went to church. This isn't like a deacon or reverend or anyone. This is a minister.
Yes.
So he confided in a minister, and this minister, who probably didn't have any information about HIV, was actually, giving medical advice, saying you don't need to take the medication. All you need to do is allow yourself to stay prayed up.
Yes, and then that's something where I've been trying to be a liaison and bridge the gap between the faith-based community as well as the clinical research community. And then there's wonderful groups here that are like interfaith with AIDS awareness organizations that work as a committee, which I've actually been on that committee as well, where we join churches in learning and educating them more about HIV awareness. So there are a lot of people that are very open-minded to it in the area I live in, which is a larger city. But when you go back home to those smaller towns, the stigma is still so strong.
Mm-hmm.
So him getting that kind of advice all those years ago from that particular minister, that's something where we need to address, because I feel like you can't sit here and, like you said, do a medical diagnosis on someone, or either a clinical therapeutic diagnosis on someone, when it goes outside the walls of your perimeter.
Yeah.
All you can be there as a spiritual advisor, but making those medical decisions and those clinical therapy decisions should have been advising to seek medical treatment for that.
Right.
Hmm.
And there's an analogy that says, if your child is being attacked by a wild dog, you're not going to just stand idly by and wait. You're going to shoot the dog. You're going to get the dog off of your child to prevent them
Hmm.
from being eaten alive. And this
Hmm.
is, almost an equivalent to that.
Hmm.
Someone is sick, and there's science that proves this is what happens when things go untreated. Here's
Hmm.
a physical step that can be taken in order to fix that.
Right.
And it's very unfortunate that that is something that has contributed to your late husband's decision to not take the
Hmm.
medication, because I mean, I'm sure that minister probably doesn't even know that he gave, poor, that he
Right.
gave unqualified medical advice. Or
Right.
does he know?
No, not that I know of, because it was never revealed in the book who the minister was in the
Mm,
journal. So I don't know who it was. I know he was very well connected with many churches here. My late husband, he was always in church all his life, grew up in church events and church programs. So I'm not sure. It could have been a number of people. But if this ever reached that particular person, I would hope that they would consider, if they have not already, that you should work as a team when it comes to things like that, because people come to church for salvation, and
yeah,
people come because they feel condemned about something. If someone's coming in seeking that type of experience or leadership from you, be considerate to consider other people that can help you with it, because I truly believe faith without works is dead.
yeah,
And the works of that whole story with him, with Brandon, is the fact that you had someone that was questioning his faith, where it made him feel stigmatized to the point where he did not want to seek treatment to live his life longer than 31 years old.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And and
That's
with
heavy.
it being such a small community, I mean, there's no telling if the minister left or if he's still there or not. But
Right.
just I wouldn't give people unsolicited medical advice. It would
Right.
always be, here's what my experience has been. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
experiences of other people. Everyone's different. You
Mm-hmm.
should go and seek medical guidance. You should go and talk to a medical professional about whatever it is that you really have a question about, because it's your body. People's bodies
Right.
are different, and I'm not one who can sit up here and, like, even now I'm learning a lot about just HIV through your experiences. I learned a lot when I talked to the Swazette. I learned a lot when I talked about Matthew, when I talked with Matthew, and it's an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of you guys' stories is not the same, so
Right.
it's
Mm-hmm.
it's I appreciate all of you guys for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk about this book you have coming out.
Yay! So, my book will be releasing out on February 7th,
Uh-huh.
which is actually National Black HIV/AIDS Day, Awareness Day.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm very excited about that because as a black woman, I think it's so important that we, as black men and black women, get tested and
Mm-hmm.
know our status and know our partner's status and be able to have those kind of conversations. So, I'm very excited about the book. The book, I believe it or not, I have not titled it yet.
I was gonna ask you, what's the
I have
title?
a deadline. I have a deadline. I gotta hurry up and meet, but
Yeah.
I have not titled it yet. But what I can tell your listeners is that it focuses a lot on my personal story, more in depth. So you'll get to learn a lot more about Brandon and I relationship and then what led up to those last 3 days of his life here, as well as you'll get to see a lot about my personal thoughts and experiences of forgiveness through this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it'll be a lot of good tidbits on, learning about the power of forgiveness and faithfulness and everything. I don't want to call it a spiritual read, but it's definitely an inspirational read.
Yeah.
And I think it's a story that is going to really inspire people.
Hold on one second. You're doing this laggy echo thing that happens every now and then for some reason. It could be because somebody's getting a notification, but that could not be.
People have verbally seen me speak the last five
Hold
years.
on. Hold
Oh,
on.
am I still there?
Yeah,
Can you hear
you
me?
are. I lost you for a second.
Uh-oh. Am I here?
Yes, you're here. I hope you're
Okay,
here.
great.
I'm,
Yes, I'm
yeah,
here.
if I'm talking to a ghost, I'm going to be very upset.
I just want to make sure you can still see me
Yeah.
and hear.
So the last thing we heard was you saying that the book is not it's not a spiritual read per se.
Yes, it's not a spiritual read, it's an inspirational read,
There you go.
more so. And it talks about the power of forgiveness and faithfulness. But it's just really a more in depth story. The last 5 years or so, people have been seeing me physically and verbally talk about my story on radio and media and TV, and they've seen it in publications. They've heard me speak. But this now is really going to be a more in depth look into the thoughts I had at those exact moments I was going through everything.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I didn't want to ask too many questions to basically have you tell the book on this episode of the podcast, but that's I'm glad you were able to share that much. So clearly, you were inspired to write the book based on what had happened. Is there a particular angle you're going to take? Like, is it going to highlight the HIV more so than your personal life, or what?
It is. It's going to
Okay.
highlight all of it. It's basically people seeing our story and how HIV was in the middle of him and I. Like how that was something we
Mm,
were dealing with and battling with, and how people can see by not disclosing how that can affect not only just the partner, but the entire family, friends, and kinship that love that person. So, and it's something where I hope that someone positive reads it and realizes how important it is to think about options for taking care of themselves and options of wanting to talk to their family and partners and friends of who they feel comfortable with. And then consider advocacy work, helping others, even if you live with your status and don't disclose it, even helping others.
yeah.
Because no one says because you're positive any STD, you have to be out here like, hey, here I am.
Right,
you
right.
know, some of us are very out here like, hey, here I am, and some of us are very like, no, I'd rather not share, but I'm willing to do the work,
Hmm.
and I respect that. So I really want to hope this book encourages people to look at that too.
Okay. And that's something that this podcast has turned into, because originally I just started it to prove a point to somebody. It was just like, hey, having herpes isn't all that bad.
Right.
And now it's more of a thing where I'm finding more people who we we wouldn't necessarily hear the story of someone like you, because a lot of what we see online is really the worst of the worst. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
herpes wise, you see the worst of the worst outbreaks. You see the worst of the worst uh, mental people dealing with it psychologically, emotionally. You see a lot of herpes jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been seeing that there's a lot of that with all STDs really,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see the worst of the worst, and hopefully here something positive for positive people, more so just taps the positive people who, or the STD positive people who are living their normal lives, just to tell, I mean, say something to someone, give some sort of encouragement to someone, just to do something to combat the stigma behind it, because you really don't know who's going through what, or people could just have an STD or anything else
Mm-hmm.
really going on with them, but they have this fear about opening up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you finally get people to open up, this was one of the things I spoke to Swazette about. The floodgates open,
Yes,
so
they
not
are.
no one has a responsibility to do anything except for be a decent human being, and just share their status, but with the people who matter. But it really does help the in the grand scheme of things. It helps everyone when you begin to hear from more people who are living a regular normal life, who go on to have families, who go on to have a fulfilling career, have fulfilling
Mm-hmm.
lives. And by doing this, I'm hoping to bring light, bring the light that those people carry to those who are still in the darkness, if that makes sense. Man, that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My head hurt.
Wow.
Yeah, again, just thank you for the work that you're doing. And
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and share your story. And you got to give us like a hint to the title of the book or something. Or maybe
At
just tell me
first,
later and I can put it in
at
the
first,
show notes.
no, yeah, I definitely will once I decide. Because my first title was gonna be, "My Life is Being," and then I was like, no, not gonna do that.
You
So
said the title was going to be
I'm
Life
still
is
thinking.
Big?
But before we run, real quick, I do want to mention, like my life is being, and then it was like gonna be like a line that had the word life, and then it was gonna be like a trilogy series. So my life is being a daughter, and then my life is being a friend, and tell different stories.
Okay.
Um, but I'm definitely still looking for the exact title for this book because this book is so personal that I wanted to really reflect
Uh huh.
how in depth, and I want it to be something that people just feel it when they hear it. So
Okay.
yeah, so
All right.
I think it's gonna be great. I'm gonna have it on time, and
All
I'll
right.
definitely let you know. But I
Good.
do want to tell you real quick about the Lux blog because that was part of my story as well.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
the Lux blog actually started with my therapist that I started seeing after Brandon passed. She really loved a lot of things I would write on social media, on Facebook, and she was like, "Are you a writer?" Because her daughter actually writes for the New York Post. And I was like, "No, I just do it as a hobby. Like, I'm not a trained writer, creative writer, but it's something I have as a hobby." And she said, "I think you should really think about writing." And then I noticed an editor at the time from Sheen Magazine liked my post. And so I liked some of their posts. And then we ended up messaging each other. And I
Isn't it
ended
funny
up,
how liking things is the new way of flirting?
right? And so we messaged each other. And next thing you know, here I am, a contributing writer, and got hired by Sheen Magazine. And that was 4.5 years ago. And the same thing happened with Essence. A guy ended up doing contributing writing with Essence, same situation. People saw me on Instagram, Facebook, writing a little bit about my story, and reached out to me. Um, and then I decided I want my own publication. And I was like, I want something where it's my voice, my way. It's fun to interview celebrities and do all these fun things, but I want something that's really my voice and my life here in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years ago, one of my friends, we got together and we started talking about creating a magazine. And we decided to create a blog first because, one, it's less expensive, and then we could kind of get some internet buzz going
Yeah.
real quickly. And we decided to create a blog, but then we both creatively were like, this is not the blog for us. So I decided to continue on and change the name and do the Lux blog. And the Lux blog was an idea where I felt like it's about art, culture, style, and entertainment for North Carolina. And him and I had both agreed creatively that was definitely a good look. So I went on and I decided to do the Lux blog. For the first year of it, I literally just went to open mic nights, to events, and it was so therapeutic to me, being that I was newly widowed and I was, wanting to do something of my own. Getting out in the community and really seeing people beyond just doing HIV work was really fun. And it became a really nice outlet for me. And I said, oh, this is starting to be a lot of buzz. People are asking me to do awards events and award shows, and I'm traveling. I was like, I'm doing stuff all over North Carolina. I need a team.
Yeah.
So and for the first year, those old blogs, if you look at them, they're literally me and my selfie stick just going around town, having a good time. But the team started in January 2017 this year, and they are all like so many. It is 11 creatives that are just awesome. And so recently we had added on one extra writer and two extra photographers, but the original team was 8 new people, and they were awesome, including my blog partner, my editor. Her name is Lenny. And we had an amazing time putting a lot of content together. Now we've done events like Dr. Matthews and I, we met World AIDS Day, well, actually, it was December 14th, 2015. I met her. And we actually got a chance to do the fashion show that I sent you the video of, and
Yeah.
which you can share with your listeners if you like or on your social media. And we had a fun time doing all these creative events. And the blog has grown so much, it launched into a PR agency, a
Oh
licensed
wow.
business blog, and a licensed PR agency. So we have clients that we have. So now we have over 13,000 subscribers to our blog. So just to see how all of that derived from that story of my husband passing, all that creative muse became that.
Mm-hmm.
HIV awareness, and then the creative writing and PR relations services we do. All of that came from my life becoming a widow.
Wow. And really, I mean, where that came from is that forgiveness that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, had you harbored resentment, you could have taken a completely different angle. Your intentions behind what you're doing now could have been completely altered. But instead, you took that moment, you went to yourself, and you heard that inner voice or God speaking to you, the source, energy, the universe, whatever it is that you want to call it. You heard that speak to you and you acted upon it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what has contributed to the success that you're having right now and the fulfilling life that you have, and just being able to really be a blessing to other people. So again, like, thank you for sharing, and thank you for doing what you're doing for everyone. How do we find you?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the Lux Blog NC. That's TheLuxBlogNC. And you can follow me on my personal IG at Pretty Fab Writer. Also on IG and Twitter. So you can find me there. And if you want to see our blog postings, go to theluxblognc.com and you can find us all there.
All right, awesome. So you can go ahead and say bye however you want to. I like to awkwardly
Oh,
let people leave an outro, or if there's anything positive that you want to leave with the listeners too.
I just want people to feel free to be creative. Be you. Being you is just enough. Being creative, however you like, is just enough. There's no one else like you. Your magic is beautiful. So I want people to understand, on your listeners, that it's amazing to just be you and be yourself. And self care should be at the forefront of your life. Keep God first and self care. and everything will be great. And don't forget to follow to beat
To
HIV.
beat HIV. That's a number two, beat HIV,
That's right. The
right?
number two, BEAT HIV. We have our HIV Cure Research Day coming up December 14th. So we're very excited about that
We got a lot of dates coming up. There's is it
day.
World AIDS
Mm-hmm.
Day? And then
December
there's
1st. Mm-hmm.
on the 14th is what again?
HIV Cure Research Day. This is
Okay.
the day where the city of Durham, North Carolina, and the state of North Carolina have proclaimed this day from a submission Dr. Matthews and I did for proclaiming it as HIV Cure Research Day. We're the only HIV Cure Research Day in the nation. So
Okay.
that's major. And we are definitely trying to continue that growth state to state and internationally as well with all the works that we do. And I'm sure Dr. Matthews will share with you her very
Oh yeah.
fabulous travels.
All right. Well, this concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please be sure to thank him on any of our social media platforms, or you can just rate and review the episode on your podcast player. I am at H on my chest on Instagram and Twitter. Hopefully, I did a lot better with the ums, the so's, and then the you knows. I counted three or four. If you want to correct me, feel free to. You can put me on blast on Twitter at H on my chest, like I did that, trying to encourage some engagement now. So, thank you for listening, and please just subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and share with anyone you think could benefit from listening to Kim's story. Till next time, stay positive. Peace.